very difficult time selling their property because they can't find a buyer, that wants to, it's like us or other people who wouldn't want to move into, wouldn't now buy a property surrounded by gas leases. So, but it depends. The general, it's complicated, and it would depend on what's permitted and not permitted in your town. And to the extent that that is a permitted use, you probably, if there's no zoning in your town and an industrial factory, that manufactures fireworks goes in next to your house, you're not going to be able to get a mortgage broker probably to let somebody buy your residential property for that. And in that case, if you went and you wanted to sue the town, the same analysis that I just gave on regulatory takings would perhaps apply there, and you'd be out of luck because your town didn't have zoning, and that's allowed. And
well, what about the lease owner?
Here's my take on that.
Are the lease owners responsible?
Here's my take on that. I think it would be difficult, but not impossible, to successfully impose liability on the landowner for doing that. I do think, and what I'm about to say is not backing away from what I said about legislative immunity, because remember, we said there's a carve-out, there's an exception for legislative immunity for malfeasance, and for basically putting your own interests ahead of your constituents. So one of the things that we actually have some younger people looking at that we're interested in is with respect to this issue of diminution in property values, and it is by everybody's lights true. In other words, except for these people who are going, maybe you're going to make some money on leasing, you will have a diminution in property values, residences, and everything else. And to the extent, what we're looking at is to the extent that we can demonstrate that that is well known, either known or should be known by these town boards who are making their decisions. And decision is defined to mean a decision to do nothing, to wait until the permit's issued. We're looking at whether or not we can take the position that if it's sufficiently well known that it is going to basically crush the property values, and if we've got a hook on an exception we talked about, which is they're basically doing this out of self-interest because they want to delay it so that they can be one of the people who gets one of the awards or whatever, then we think not necessarily against the leasing people just for diminution in value, but we're looking at whether or not we can pierce that legislative immunity out of self-interest.
Well,